Again, my name is Richard. I'm with Comtrend. This is an overview of the surveillance package that we are putting together. So, generally speaking, what people want to do with their surveillance products is they want to observe what is going on when they're actually home. In this case, who's at the front door, what's going on in the garage, backyard, poolside, maybe the backyard with the kids. But in addition, people also want to know what is happening on their property when they are not at home. So here, basically, we have the same views of the same property pieces, just to give people an idea of what is happening when they're not around. Other motives for having a surveillance package would be to observe crime, whether it's in your business, in your property, generally in the neighborhood. So crime prevention, it is not, but it is the ability to review what crime has occurred. Traditionally, back in the days, if you wanted to have a surveillance solution, you would have to go to the big players, Pelco, Bosch, Tyco, Panasonic, Honeywell. But in today's market, you can pretty much get surveillance from anybody, ADT, Cox, Walmart, Office Depot. Unfortunately though, these guys have a tendency to provide you with what I call marketing overload, to where they provide you with so many solutions and so many options that our customers really can't decide what they need and why they need it. One thing I can tell you, the $700 package from Costco, for all likelihood, is not the solution they're looking for. They may think it is, but once they install it, experience it after a couple of months, they're almost invariably disappointed with its features and its general image quality. The two major components of what our customers are looking for is the ability to view live video and the ability to view recorded video. Everything else is pretty much just icing and bling on the cake. We want to know, we want to be able to see the clear images, we want to be able to search it, find it, export it, mostly to law enforcement or just for fun. Comtrend, we are looking to provide you with an end-to-end product solution by providing you the hardware, the software, and new service options for the recurring monthly revenue. The hardware would include switches, cameras, and recorders. The software is the local interface for on-site viewing, which is really fast, the online interface for offline viewing or off-site viewing, and the deployment system overview. This is specific to telephone companies and MSOs that will allow you to view all of the installations that you have out in the field in a single interface so that you can see by color coding whether or not an NVR or camera is offline at an individual property. So although the systems themselves will report to you if there is a camera outage, you can actually look at a map. If everything is green, you know that all of your systems are running perfectly. If anything is in yellow, you know that that particular system has a camera problem. And if anything is in red, you know that that NVR has not checked in with the system for at least 5 minutes. The other great thing about that is that it allows you to actively monitor the health status of the individual systems. If you have an NVR and it suffers a catastrophic failure, it will not have an opportunity to send you an email or a text message or anything else that tells you that it is failing or it has already failed. But with the active monitoring, it allows you to tell your customers that if their system falls offline for any reason, we will notice, because after 5 minutes, if the NVR does not report in, you will be notified that that NVR is MIA, at which point you will know to go ahead and investigate it. It could be something as simple as the internet has gone out, or it could be something as severe that the NVR itself has failed. The other thing that we also offer is, for the recurring monthly revenue, is the online storage aspect of the solution. The solution provides for your video to be stored at the Microsoft Azure Cloud service, so that in the event the NVR is destroyed or stolen, you still have the video of the incident that occurred at the property. There is also a concierge video retrieval service component to it. This is where, let's say, an event occurred on your truck last night, and you don't know when it happened, but you wake up in the morning and there was damage to your truck in the driveway. You don't have to go into the system and search it, export it, and do any of that stuff. What your customer would do is they would just call you, the service provider, and tell you, something happened to my truck last night, can you do me a favor? Can you go ahead and find out what happened? At which point you will go into their NVR, review their video, and then export the appropriate clips, export the appropriate screenshots, and then email it to them. You wouldn't make any determinations for them, even though it's painfully obvious that the person across the street slammed into your truck with their minivan. You would just provide them with a video and the screenshots and let them come to their own conclusions. Our kit is good to go right out of the box. All we need from you, the telco or MSO providers, is the ability to run Cat6 cable or Cat5 cable. So in this general scenario, what would happen is that you would have a CPE, preferably a Comtrend one, but it could be anyone's. You would run your Cat5 or Cat6 lines throughout the property to the locations that you want the cameras at, and then you would deploy the equipment. Comtrend will provide you the PoE switch, the recorder, and all of the cameras. In the event you need a solution that has additional lines, you know what? Run a couple more lines, drop a couple more cameras in, and now you have a 6-camera solution versus a 4-camera solution. The switch and the NVR do not need to be switched out until you exceed 6 cameras, at which point you're going to need a bigger switch and then a bigger NVR than what comes in the original kit. This is the residential example, but on the commercial side, it's generally the same setup. You have a single CPE, get your field technician to run the Cat5, Cat6 lines, and then deploy the equipment. Need additional indoor cameras? Go ahead and just deploy more cameras, run some more lines. Super straightforward, really easy. The cameras and the NVR are pre-configured in the box, so when you unpack it, it will fire up. If it takes you more than, 45 seconds to see the cameras on the NVR, then something's wrong. Put it back in the box, put it back on the truck. There's something wrong with the units themselves. Because for us, we understand that it's really painful to troubleshoot a system for 30, 45 minutes just to find out that the hardware itself is flawed. So in our case, all of our stuff works immediately right out of the box. In this particular model of the installation flow, we're going to do a 6-camera solution with a Comtrend PoE switch and an NVR. At this point, these products are connected to the internet. Once it is connected to the internet, the product itself reaches out to the internet and is already pre-configured for your partner code. So it provides automatically the remote viewing, the cloud hosted, and the remote device management. So your field technician does not need to do port forwarding, they do not need to access the router, they do not need to concern themselves with local security on the network system. As soon as the NVR is DHCP'd an IP address, it reaches out to the internet and it provides everything that you need for service to the internet. This is what causes us to have the new service options. The new service options are based on the internet, the cloud hosting, and the remote management services. For the remote management services, that's where you get the active system monitoring for the internet status, the camera status, and the NVR status. And then the concierge video service for you to be able to provide your customers with the convenience of being able to call to receive the video of the incident versus having to be trained or having to be bothered with finding it themselves. The internet increased bandwidth for the upload speeds. Depending on the number of cameras you have, the number of the resolution and the bit rate you're going to use, it is possible that your local site will need additional upload bandwidth. A 2 megapixel camera running at 15 frames per second is going to run you about half a meg worth of upload. So if your site is going to run 6 cameras, you're going to need at least 3 megs of upload dedicated to the NVR system itself. Online storage. This is a cloud storage solution. So again, everything's hosted over at the Microsoft Azure site. You can purchase the storage space in 100 gigabyte increments, and then you then resell that 100 gigabyte increment to your customer base. And then that again generates a monthly revenue service on that. Generally speaking again, hardware, Comtrend provides you with the switches, the cameras, the recorders, software, local interface, online interface, deployment strategy, strategic view, and then the new services, the video health monitoring and the concierge services. I'm going really quick because typically this is a 1-hour presentation, but we are only allotted about 25 minutes for it. Does anybody have any questions at this point before I move on to the Comtrend hardware specific?
You said that you have to reserve bandwidth, upstream bandwidth for each camera?
You don't have to reserve it, but for optimal performance, you would want to calculate that into your deployment strategy.
So you support motion sense, so you only get...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, motion sensing, you can tool down the frame rate. We never recommend tooling down the clarity of the video. So if it's a 2 megapixel, always go 2 megapixels. Because even if you get nice, smooth video, if it's grainy, I'd rather have choppy video that's clean. so that at least I have an opportunity to get a good frame versus have a lot of frames that there's no opportunity for good.
Can you tag the traffic with DSCP or something like that if we did want to prioritize the upstream?
You can do QoS on whatever you want.
Any cameras that have local storage, SD storage, so you...
I can cover that as far as our product lines, but yes, all of our cameras have local storage. The potential of local storage, they have a built-in micro SD card slot, so you can put up to a 32 gig stick into it. For our cameras in particular, 2 megapixels at 15 frames gives you about 4.9 days
What
on the camera.
resolution on that?
2 megapixel, 1080p.
1080.
Yeah. So 1 megapixel is 720, 2 megapixels is 1080.
What's the difference between DVR and NVR? Some systems use DVR
DVI for,
instead of the NVR setting.
I'm not familiar with what MBI is.
He's asking the difference between a DVR and an NVR.
Oh, a DVR is for analog cameras, while an NVR is specifically for network cameras. So if you have an IP camera system, the unit itself is called an NVR for a network video recorder, while for an analog system, it's a DVR for a digital video recorder. So it's just the technology that they're using as far as supporting the cameras.
Is there branding on the apps in the cloud?
Everything that you've seen right here, the branding is Comtrend. If you want specifically to your company, absolutely it is possible, but it's something that we'd have to throw money at. Any other questions? That was almost a question.
Audio and video? Or video only?
The 3 out of the 4 cameras do audio microphones. 2 of them have jacks for an external speaker. 1 of them does not. But the NVR solution itself does support audio as well. For mic specific cameras, 3 out of the 4 cameras are infrared. So again, this is just the general solution package. So you guys want to move on to general hardware? So specifically for the hardware, this is Comtrend's PoE switch running both 802.3 AF and AT standard. So that means it'll do the 15.4 watts and it'll do the 30 watts. All of our units have enough power to power 802.3 AF across all ports. So the little 4-port plus the 1 crossover has 80 watts, and then this one is 8-port and it has 130 watts. So on the short end, it's 16.5 watts per channel. Realistically, on the 8-port switch, you would never use all 8 ports for a PoE device because you're going to need to reserve 1 to cross over to your network. So, but with that said, if you are running 802.3 AF standard, you can go ahead and plug those into every single port and it'll be good to go. Our switches also have a power meter that's actually built into the front of it. The power meter is to the left of the ports, and it will show you how much of the available PoE power budget is available in real time. So as you plug more and more devices into it, you'll see the power meter itself go down. So this way, at a glance, you will always know exactly, not exactly, but you will generally know how much power you have left in your overall power budget for the switch. It's a really great feature, we love it. On the cameras, all of our cameras are 2 megapixels. Some of them are vandal-proof, some of them are weatherproof. Again, some of them have infrared. All of them are PoE. One of them, which is the small one, is exclusively PoE, so it does not have an option for a local power. Bidirectional audio support, again, is on 3 out of them. 2 out of the 3 is bidirectional audio. This one right here has just a microphone, and this one has no audio at all. But this one and this one both have speaker and microphone jacks. Local micro SD card slot, 32 gigs maximum storage, which again is about 4.5 days at 1080p at 10 frames. I'm sorry, I think previously I said 15 frames. That's at 10 frames. Questions about the cameras?
ETZ?
Not yet. But this camera here is a variable focus. So it has a 3 to 10.5 millimeter lens on it. So you can go ahead and adjust the focus on it. It's autofocusing as well, but you can adjust the focal point on it. This camera here is IK10 on the impact rating. This one and this one are IK8. So they're very rugged. This is the NVR. This particular version of the NVR has 64 gigs of local storage. The 64 gigs of local storage is actually only there to provide you a buffer in the event the internet goes down. It is not intended for primary storage. So if your internet goes down for 2 or 3 days, the local unit itself will continue to buffer that video until the internet comes back online. Once the internet does come back online, the unit will then start pushing the video up as quickly as it can to catch up. This particular unit will support up to 6 cameras. It is solid state, so it is completely quiet. And there is online viewing and there is an opt-in out. Our first kit will contain 4 indoor cameras and 2 outdoor cameras, or 4 outdoor cameras and 2 indoor cameras. It will include the 8-port PoE switch and 1 NVR that will support up to 6 cameras. We also have a 4 camera pack that will include 4 interior cameras, and we have a separate camera pack that will include just 4 exterior cameras. But again, these kits will be pre-keyed so that when you fire up the NVR, the cameras themselves will come online immediately. So when you log into it, you're pretty much good to go at that point. You put your partner code, that'll attach the NVR to your specific partner code, so it'll show up in your command overview so that you can see the deployments and the overall health status. That additionally gives you the ability to reset passwords and check the system health as well, or create new user logins. So if your customer is trying to log into the unit and they can't because they no longer remember their credentials, you can remote into that through the backend interface and take care of that. That is also the method that you would use if you were going to do the concierge service and provide them with the service of retrieving their video. You would follow whatever policies you would have in place that allows you to access their video, create yourself a credential, log in, do the deed, and then remove your credentials. We are currently deploying this. We're going to do a press release for this this month. We are testing it now with our early adopters, and for the cameras themselves, we currently have samples available today. The NVR solution, we should have samples of that maybe in October, after our alpha testers have given it some time.
So not a live monitored service per se.
It is not a live monitored service, not by any means. At which point we would have probably called more towards a security interface versus just a surveillance interface.
And that also requires other certifications for installs and everything, right?
It also requires a great deal of liability insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get this, you're on your own.
Well, in this particular case, you're providing surveillance. You are not presuming to secure anything. If your truck was going to be stolen, if the cameras fail, your truck was going to be stolen anyways. The only downside is now you don't get to see who did it. So we in no way prevent loss. We just hope to provide you the ability to see what happened as far as how the loss occurred. I believe that's it.
You have the option to pick and choose what cameras will stream out to the internet?
Yes. And you can also pick and choose which cameras are viewable by which credentials.
So you can choose like the indoor cameras to be recorded on the buffer NVR?
No, you would actually, in that particular case, you would tell it not to record at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what if you still want to record on local storage, but we're paranoid about someone viewing it out on the internet? I mean, we assume it's secure, but.
Correct. I hear you on that. I have not considered that. I can investigate it, but at this time, that is not a feature that is in place.
So we got local storage on the camera and on the NVR.
Correct. And it's redundant, so it doesn't stack. So for instance, if the camera itself has 32 gigs, the NVR has 64, and the internet has 100, your video starts going to the internet immediately. The other two are just buffer as far as the NVR is concerned, and redundancy as far as what's on the camera. In your particular case, if you wanted to view it locally and you didn't want to have to go through the web interface, you can log into the individual cameras and then just have the video recorded on the individual NVR, on the individual memory stick on the camera itself. The search interface isn't as clean as the NVR interface is, but you can still download blocks of video from the camera without actually having to physically access the camera again.
I guess 2 questions. One, who's the underlying manufacturer for the cameras?
We are.
You are. Okay.
Yes.
And now from an installation perspective, is there an intermediary box between the PoE switch and the camera, or is it Cat 6 directly into the camera.
It's Cat 6 directly into the camera, but if you wanted a mid-span solution such as a PoE injector, we will be carrying those as well. So if you had only one camera and you didn't want to pick up a PoE switch for it, you can pick up a PoE injector. Telco cost would probably be like 25 bucks. And it would still be a gigabit connection. Although it is completely unnecessary, but it would be a gigabit connection. It's completely unnecessary for surveillance. If you're using the PoE or the PoE injector to power one of our WAP 1750 access points, then you're going to want to be a gigabit PoE injector.
And the PoE only.
No, just the small one is PoE only. The other three have 5-volt DCN. Sorry, 12-volt DCN.
But they still require any.
They'll still require an Ethernet cable to transmit the data back. So in all reality, I see no reason why anybody would use anything other than PoE unless it's a retrofit and they're going to use a Chinese connection and do it some type of an encoder on the far side.
Or if you want a battery backup on.
If you want a battery backup on, put a battery backup on the PoE switch.
Is it 12-volt interface on the PoE switch?
No, you would get a 12-volt power supply or something like that. Again,
Well, no, that's what, is the PoE, is it plugged into the 12-volt wall or?
oh no, the PoE is a 110-volt.
So you need a UPS in it.
Correct. Yeah. So you would put a UPS, and it's actually better that way. If you put a UPS on the PoE switch, then all of your cameras are on the UPS. If you do it individually, then you're going to talk about having to individually power back up each point on your network, and that's just less convenient. Plus, you're going to want to have want to have that backed up on the NVR and your internet connection anyways.
Are there any other automation, home automation you guys are coming out with initially?
That I don't know because I'm not the home automation product manager.
Okay.
But we do have some home monitoring that we're coming out with. At our table, we recently introduced a PT camera and the doorbell cam. We got the samples in just recently. We were using this show as the opportunity to kind of get the temperature as far as the interest in those cameras. The interest seems to be really good, so we've decided to carry those two cameras. So we will have the doorbell cam and we will have the PT cam. But as far as the rest of home automation, that I'm not unclear about. Any other questions?